So I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges when we're dealing with looking at thousands of tightly packed geolocated plants in these fields. Duke has already talked a bit about high throughput phenotyping and why that's important and the various sensors that we use. But we need to use high precision GPS in order to actually know what that sensor is looking at any given moment. And as we know, GPS has got a high degree of inaccuracy. However, what we're using is something called RTK, real-time kinematic GPS. Now this uses a base station that's a known fixed point that's able to give a correction offset by a wireless link to another GPS that's tracking the same satellites. Now the downside of this is that it has an increased cost. You now have the base station, which is an additional GPS antenna, wireless transmission, you've got better software, and also you're going to need some processors involved in order to make it real time. However, these costs are starting to drop. In 2009, RTK-lib came around. This is an open source RTK library that solves the software problem, and it was demonstrated being used using simple ARM processors along with more cheap GPS antennas. Another example is a recent commercial offering called Pixky, which is $1,000. It gets you both the base station and the actual rover component. It's lightweight, low cost. You can fit it right up on one of those UASs. Talking a bit more about unmanned aerial systems. We do have a certificate of approval from the FAA to fly our farm in 2015 and 2016. We're going to be using stereoimetry in order to determine plant height along with multispectrometry for infrared and NDVI analyses. It's going to use GPS and a programmed flight path in order to do automated data collection. Some of the challenges involved include FAA regulations. We did need to get a certificate of approval, and it's a little bit of gray area usually between hobbyists versus any other use, and this is going to become more clear later on down the road. Public acceptability could be a problem, though we're working in a rural environment, it becomes less of an issue. We do need to do some post-processing of the GIS data in order to make sure it's properly aligned to the individual plants. However, what I want to start doing is investigating some sort of automated method in order to do that, either using some sort of marker system or perhaps using an RTK GPS like I showed before. Some of the advantages of using UAS, of course, time, money, and better resolution, which Duke had already talked about. But getting a good idea what kind of resolution we're talking about there, we can compare between a satellite imagery, in which we can just get a general idea what's going on in the field, versus very high resolution information, which is what we need on a per plant basis. Another thing I want to investigate is using precision non-GPS solutions. Perhaps instead using a predetermined or learned path, an accelerometer, some sensors, and some real-time intelligent processing to know what plant you're looking at a given time. Now, why am I doing that? For the Bill Gates presentation, I had put together something we call the tricoder. It's essentially using some low-cost components, using just prototype components, about under $200. We're able to outfit an IR camera, infrared temperature, sonar, infrared rangefinder. Also could connect potentially over the internet, and it's got a pretty easy user interface. In conclusion, I find that having high precision data is not only feasible, but it also can be cost effective both in terms of time and money. If you're interested more about what we do, come visit us or shoot me an email. Thank you.